Well everyone, the On30 project layout is finally complete and I'm really happy with how everything turned out. I think everything really came together in the end and I'm pretty pleased with how everything looks. So in this video, we'll go through doing all the final scenery work, adding in the last details, and just wrapping up the project. So anyway, let's get started. So the first step was to apply a layer of dirt to the entire layout, and then I could come back and add grasses and ground foams and that kind of thing. Now I normally use a dirt material from Scenic Express, which I like a lot, but it's not currently available, so I had to use something else. I had tried to buy some stuff from Arizona Rock and Material, but that just didn't arrive, and so I decided to try using some sanded grout that I picked up from Home Depot. I picked up 4 different colors in these small containers. I picked up haystack, linen, bone, and natural gray. Now I wasn't sure of the best way to actually adhere this material, so I just took some paper plates and sprinkled on stripes of each one of the colors, and then initially tried 2 different ways to adhere them. I basically, after spreading everything out, I took some 70% IPA, which has basically 30% water, 70% isopropyl alcohol, and so the alcohol would readily soak into the grout mixture, and the water, in theory, would activate all the cement binding products to harden everything. But I wasn't sure if that would be enough to actually bind everything together, and so on one of the test plates, I also soaked everything with some scenic cement afterwards. And then after doing that, I just set everything aside to dry until the next day. Alright, so I have the original 2 samples ready, as well as a third one, and what I did with this one was I actually just painted on a mixture of the diluted matte medium, sprinkled on the various sanded grouts, and then just sprayed them down with the 70, or this is actually 70% IPA because I refilled it from a 70% bottle, and sprayed that on there. So this is sort of the third one. Anyway, this one here, just sprayed with the IPA, is pretty solid. There is some loose material around the edges where it's just real thin because that doesn't, it's not really bound to anything. But wherever the material is thicker, it is hard and solid. So just spraying everything with the IPA works well as long as you don't have just a really thin, sparse coating. But wherever you have a thicker coating, it is pretty solid. This one here is hard as a rock. This is where I dribbled on the diluted matte medium after spraying everything down with the alcohol, but it left a white coating on everything. I'm not sure what happened there. Normally matte medium doesn't do that. I'm not sure if it was a reaction with whatever binding agents are in the grout that caused that to happen. So this is a Portland cement-based product, and it mentions efflorescence, which is a whitish powder on it that can develop. So I don't know if it's related to a reaction with the Portland cement with the matte medium or exactly what happened with that. So I'll have to do some more experimentation with this. Now this third option might be the best way to go. Again, I painted on a fly a diluted mix of the matte medium, and then I sprinkled on all the material and then sprayed it down. And so this way, all the little tiny bits, had that matte medium to help bind them in there. And then everything that was thicker just bound to itself really well when it was wetted down. And so this provides a pretty good material. You can get a little bit loose material still, but it's pretty solid. So anyway, I think this is how I'm going to go and do things with the On30 layout, where I need to add some dirt. For my dirt, I'm going to, I think, use a mixture of this, and then I might use a slighter one for the dirt road on the layout. And so this will give me something kind of in between these 2 shades, which will hopefully be a good match for the layout. So let me just try putting some of this dirt material here on top of the ballast and kind of working that in there and see how that works. So I kind of want to make the ballast look like it's embedded in dirt and not just kind of by itself there. That is actually lighter than what I was wanting. But see, the goal is to have something that's, looks a lot more filled in than just the raw ballast by itself, which has lots of big gaps and things between the individual pieces. So this will hopefully look a little bit more realistic when it dries, but we'll come back and see what happens. So after my initial experiments with applying the material on the layout, I went ahead and painted on a layer of scenic cement everywhere that I wanted to have the sanded grout mixture applied. Then I came back and put on the grout mixture itself, and then soaked everything with a 70% IPA. And so here you can see what the layout looked like with that grout dirt mixture applied to the entire layout. There were still some areas that I came back and added some more here and there, like the dirt road later on, but this basically was how everything looked. Now the color of the dirt was still a little bit too light for most areas, and so I wanted everything a little bit darker, so I just mixed up a wash of very light brown paint. So it was just a squirt of brown craft paint in a cup with a lot of water added, and I just basically brushed that onto all the areas that I wanted to have a little bit darker. Now it looks a lot darker here just because the water is making everything look darker, but once that water dried, it was just very slightly darker than what it was originally. So with the dirt layer complete, the next step was to add the static grass. So I painted on a layer of scenic cement everywhere that I wanted to have the grass stick to the layout. Now these were the three colors of static grass that I used. I'm not really sure what the color names are or who the manufacturer was. I think I picked up most of these from Scenic Express, but I really can't be sure because it's just in my bin of bags of static grass, and it's been a long time since I actually purchased all these products. But I mixed all three of them together, put them in the hopper, and then just worked on applying that static grass over the entire layout. The next step was to add other ground foams. Now for the ground foam mixture, I used three different products as well. The main product was this green Adirondack blend from Scenic Express, and this has various shades in there. Plus it has random bits of sticks and things like that to make for a nice forest floor. But I also use a lighter green that has a little bit of brown mixture in there as well as some of this burnt grass coarse turf from Woodland Scenic. So basically, again, mixing up a few different varieties that had multiple shades in there to give me a lot of variation as I applied the material. And so I just went through and put all the turf material everywhere that I thought it looked good. And then to adhere it, I did my normal technique of soaking it with the IPA first and then applying a glue scenic cement mix on top of that to adhere everything in place. And so I just worked my way around the layout until I had everything pretty much the way I wanted it. I also installed the two trees that I had ready. And so to make all the trees be a closer color match, what I did was just take the trees that I picked up from Scenic Express, I sprayed them just with some spray adhesive, and then I applied the same static grass that I use on the homemade pine tree to these trees so everything would have the same color. I just poked holes and glued those trees in place on the layout as well, applying more ground foam mixture around the bases to blend them into the layout. So with the layout basically done, the last step was to do a couple additional kits that I hadn't built yet. I had a small outhouse kit, so I built that. That was very, very straightforward, just 4 walls, a floor, the 2 roof pieces, and basically just gluing that together and then staining it. And I also had this Berkshire Valley model Ford small stake truck kit that I put together as well. This was a white metal casting, so all the pieces I just used super glue and put them all together. So once I had all the parts glued together, I spray painted the truck black, and then I spray painted the bed area a tan brown color and set those aside to dry. And then I came back after that dried and painted the cab of the truck a red color. It was actually a mixture of 3 different reds to kind of get a shade that I liked. It was regular red, scarlet red, and I think some crimson color until I got a shade that I liked. Once that dried, I glued the bed of the truck on, and then it was time to do some weathering. And so what I did was use a sepia wash. I just brushed that on the entire truck to kind of provide a dirty base color to the truck. And then I just took some weathering powders, some browns and grays and things, and just brushed the entire truck with those powders to get a color that I liked. I also used a rust color powder as well, and tried to get everything dirtied and slightly rusty to my liking. But anyway, you can see here what that looked like with all the powders applied, and I think it turned out pretty nice. And here you can see it on the layout. I wasn't sure if I was going to build this truck at first, but it really did add a lot to the layout to have that truck there. So that's how I finished up this On30 project layout. Again, this was a really fun project to do. It was built on one of these Ironworks models kits. It's roughly 25 by 28 inches, something like that. The base itself is a little bit smaller than that, but the scenery kind of extends a little bit off the edges all the way around. And so it's a little bit larger than what the actual base is, but it's still a very compact layout. You can put something like this pretty much anywhere in your house. There's a lot of places on an end table or whatever else you could put something like this. So layouts like this are just a lot of fun to do because it's a way to try out new techniques, build something that maybe isn't something you normally do. Again, this is On30. I don't normally model On30, so it's a way to do something in a scale or gauge that I don't normally do, and I'm not making a big commitment to it either. Obviously, it's just a small project. So if you wanted to kind of dabble in some other scales or gauges, give a small layout like this a try. I'll have a link to the layout base that I use for this project in the description, as well as the links to all the videos for the entire construction process of this layout, part 1, 2, 3, 4, all that. And then later this week or next week, I'll have the full compilation video from start to finish, all in one video of building this entire layout. So look for that as well if you want everything in one place. But anyway, that's all for the On30 project layout. I hope you enjoyed the journey, but that's all for now, and thanks for watching. Bye.